ambassador to the UN said the conversation was based on mutual respect but did not elaborate on any breakthroughs. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency met with Iran's nuclear chief, hoping to preserve the watchdog's ability to monitor the country's nuclear facilities. But Iran is demanding sanctions be lifted and has threatened to stop inspections and cut off their surveillance cameras at various sites. Iran is considering a proposal for informal meetings with the United States to discuss returning to the 2015 nuclear deal. And Iran's foreign minister spoke about ending the UN's inspections. Freelance reporter Ehsan Kavani has more on that.
Zarif says Iran will be open on negotiations on reviving the historic 2015 nuclear accord once all signatories, including Washington, begin fulfilling their obligations.
So there has been a dismal failure on the part of the Europeans and the Americans to implement their obligation. Now, we have reduced our the level of our commitment, but we have always said it's reversible. The minute they come back to full compliance, we will go back to full compliance.
He said pressure does not work with Iran, and Trump administration's maximum pressure policy has led to maximum failure, in fact. According to Deputy Foreign Minister Araqchi, Iran's new move scheduled Tuesday will limit the IAEA's supervision by 20 to 30%. In the first phase, Tehran began to enrich uranium to 20% early January, and the second phase would be to end voluntary implementation of the additional protocol, while in the next phase, intrusive inspections by the nuclear watchdog would not be allowed. Contrary to 2015, when Rouhani's administration was engaged with the nuclear negotiations, this time the key decisions are being made by the Iranian parliament, which has put forth the Tuesday's deadline. Tehran has also produced advanced fuel for a research reactor in Tehran with uranium metal. However, Iran's foreign ministry says it is not in contradiction to non-proliferation treaty or the safeguards agreement commitments.
So let's talk about this more with Harvey Zodin. He's a senior fellow at the Center for China and Globalization and a former legal advisor in the Carter administration. Good to have you with us tonight, Harvey. So the United States says it will not drop sanctions unless Iran returns to the deal. Iran says it won't return to the deal unless the U.S. drops sanctions. So where do we go from here to break this deadlock?
I'm afraid we're going to go down the rabbit hole and closer to a war, even possibly nuclear, unfortunately. I think it's going to be impossible to return to the 2015 JCPOA, and I believe that we can expect increased chaos. If Trump hadn't illegally withdrawn from it in 2018, it's very likely that the JCPOA would still be in place. Less and less palatable to the parties, but better than nothing. You have to remember that the agreement was 20 months in the making, and it's fair to say that as imperfect as it was the best available deal. But both sides also do have ample reasons to disengage from it now, even though the agreement lifted many but not all sanctions on Iran. Those that remained still had a stranglehold on the Iranian economy, so that the Iranian leaders weren't pleased, and neither was the suffering populace. So why would they go back to that? And the other side wasn't and isn't pleased either, because the JCPOA didn't cover delivery systems nor Iranian troublemaking through proxies in its hyper-volatile region. So at this juncture, I don't think either side is motivated to blink.
So, Harvey, that's a pretty grim assessment. Is there any possibility for some hope, some optimism, considering there is a new administration in the United States and President Joe Biden says he's willing to restart talks with Tehran?
He's willing to restart the talks, but they're going to be extremely difficult and complicated. I think a resolution this week is extremely unlikely, but I do think that the first step is for all parties. That means US, China, EU, France, Germany, Russia, and the UK to meet with the Iranians in March to discuss the impasse. But time is of the essence because the clock is ticking. Iran claims to still be in the agreement, but says they're taking remedial action under the JCPOA in shutting down the inspections this week. At the same time, they are moving closer to bomb-quality fissile material. Simultaneously, the Iranian presidential elections in mid-June favor hardliners who will be less flexible to negotiating, even back to the 2015 agreement, and especially given the desire of the other parties to want to include Iranian delivery systems and the behavior of Iran and its proxies in the region. One thing that also concerns me is that the US and other parties apparently don't appear to have conferred with either China or Russia at this very moment that concerted action is sorely needed. In the expected absence of progress, I think, unfortunately, that the winds of war will be blowing stronger across this volatile region.
All right, Harvey Zodin with the Center for China and Globalization. Thank you for your time.